You are now listening to the Building Her Dream podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with introverted women entrepreneurs who are building their dream lives and businesses on their own terms. Hosted by business operations strategist, author, and the founder of Building Her Dream, Shayla Burton. To learn more about this podcast and our magazine, visit www.buildingherdream.com. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Building Her Dream podcast. I'm your host and lifelong introvert, Shayla Burton, and I'm so excited to chat with today's guest. She is Jen Boyle, a leadership and communications expert and the host of the Lead Quietly podcast, all the way from Canada. Hello, Jen. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Shayla, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. So glad to have you here. I've been following you for a while, so I'm so glad that I got you on the show today. Now, if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that we are all about living the dream life. So, Jen, if you could wake up tomorrow and have the perfect dream life, what would that look like for you?
Oh, I love this question. It would be that I would have a lot of flexibility. That would be a big part of my dream life. And by that I mean I would wake up in my house, which one of the dreams is to have sort of the dream house. Nothing too big, nothing too fancy, but comfortable, a really nice open kitchen with lots of light and my very own office. That is one of the things I don't have right now. I have a little desk in the corner of the dining room. And so part of the dream life is to have my very own office. And I would wake up to get to do like heart-centered work every day, that I would have the flexibility to pick my own schedule and that I could work with women, I could help support women go after their goals and be available to my kids to be able to do the school things and the field trips and be the parent and be able to balance both with a lot of ease. So that would really be at the core of my dream life.
I love that. Now, would you still be in Canada or would you want to live somewhere a bit warmer?
That's a great question. You know, this is home to me. I've lived here my whole life and I'm Canadian through and through. So I think I would still live here. But you raise a
Yeah,
good I think I would travel a bit more than I do now, especially in the COVID years where we didn't really go anywhere. It's been pretty
yeah.
housebound for a long time, or just, you know, in the day to day. I would love to travel to different beach places, you know, and feel that warm sand. I would love to go to Italy someday and see it. I've never been to Europe before, and some of those places that have a lot of history, I would like to go to some of those places.
Yeah, very cool. Love that. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and the work that you do?
Sure. I am the founder of Lead Quietly, which I started as my own business about 2.5 years ago. And I have a mission to help those who are quieter and those who are introverted be more confident leaders. And I want to help them do it without being loud, because I think there's sometimes a bit of a presumption that the leaders or the people who are natural born leaders or those who are promoted into the higher level positions are people who are assertive, they're outgoing, they're really talkative, they're really direct, they're take charge. And whether or not that's true, and things have changed over the years, there still exists a little bit of that feeling that if you're going to be a leader, you need to have some of those qualities. And I think there are so many people who have maybe a quieter personality, maybe they like alone time a little bit more, but who still have amazing ideas and they can make a real difference in the world, or they have something that they want to share. And perhaps they're having trouble getting it out. They just, you know, not really great at talking about themselves, or speaking up can be difficult, or they never thought of themselves as a leader. And so they don't go for certain opportunities because they just sort of count themselves out. And the whole premise of Lead Quietly is to do leadership and work on confidence and go after your goals without being loud, without needing to be flashy, or without needing to really change your personality, and so that you can see yourself as a leader too. So right now, I'm I do a podcast, I have a Facebook group, and I'm all about just bringing people together. That's really the main thing that I'm doing right now under my company, is giving space for the quiet and introverted ones to come together and kind of navigate their goals that are like professional goals, business goals, in their job, life goals, and just sort of like not feel so lonely, and empower them.
Love that. I love what you do. And I love the name, the Lead Quietly. I'm like, I wish I would have thought of that. Um, and I definitely can resonate with it as a human resources leader. A lot of people questioned about why I was in that field because I guess I'm not the typical HR person. I'm not super bubbly and I'm a bit more reserved. And, so my family thought that was weird that I'm in that field. And then sometimes I felt like, people that I worked with just didn't think the field was right for me. And so in the beginning, I used to doubt myself. But then I started to realize that like all of the um, team members at a lot of the companies that I worked for, when they needed help, when they had questions, they needed support, when they needed a listening ear, I was the person that they were always coming to. Um, and so then I started to realize, you know what? Okay, I may be quiet, I may not be super social, but I'm still a people person because I understand people really well. I'm a great listener and I understand how to help them. Um, and so yeah, I think it just took me a while to realize that I do have really great leadership qualities.
I love that because so many people think that introverts or quieter people are not social or not
Exactly.
people. And you are, it just is different. Or you
Mm.
can see people maybe through your observation, through your intuition, through your emotional intelligence. You sense the vibe in the room, or you're paying attention to the small details that maybe
Mm.
other people are missing. And
Yeah,
if you get into a deeper conversation with someone who you have so much in common with, you can connect with, you could talk to them all day. But if you had to go to a networking event and make small talk with 40 people, I think I'll just, no thanks. I'd like to go home and put my sweatpants
exactly.
on.
Right.
Exactly.
Hmm. Yeah. So, when did you first realize that you were an introvert, or do you even remember when you first heard of that term?
Yeah. It's so funny. If you asked people who knew me when I was little, they probably wouldn't have said that I was an introvert back then, surprisingly. And I've become more introverted the older I've gotten. And it's interesting. I was probably always, if I, filled out the Myers-Briggs, or, the things that tell you which part of the scale you're on, I'm probably right on the line of introvert, extrovert. And then the older I've gotten, more into the introvert side. And when I was young, I was always sort of the one who would make peace in the group, like to make sure everyone was feeling okay, make sure there was harmony, make sure no one was mad. I always kind of played that peacemaker role. And as I've gotten older, I've realized I can do that, but it's tiring. And I need more time by myself to recharge. And I really see the introvert extrovert as having to do with where you get your energy from. And I need a lot of alone time to think. I need a lot of alone time to recharge. And I process better by myself for certain things. Certain things, you need to talk to someone and that can really help. But so it's really been something that has an identity that I have assumed later in life, which is
Mhm.
maybe different than some of the other stories of other people's childhoods. I will say, though, always been the kid with her nose in a book and who was
Mm.
writing in a diary since I was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old. I always had a diary, always into journaling, writing, 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 and
Yeah,
enjoying some pursuits that were independent, individual pursuits versus like team sports.
gotcha. Hmm. Yeah, it's been interesting. So a lot of the women that I've been talking to lately have been saying that a lot of people are surprised to know that they are actual introverts. And I guess it's just because they are, very social or they're speaking on stages. And so people don't think that they're introverts, but they are because once they get off that stage, they crash.
Mhm. Totally.
Um, mhm. But me, I've been the quiet one my entire life. I
Yes.
just I just didn't know that I was an introvert. I just assumed I was weird or something was wrong with me because I was different from like other people in my surroundings. So,
Yes. And you know what? It makes me think about this one experience I had when I was young. I think I was around 10 and I was in school and um, thinking about being the quiet one. And it sort of relates to what I do now and being afraid to speak up, being the quiet one in the classroom. I think I was the high achiever. I got good marks. I, you know,
yeah.
read the books, did the assignments, but when it came to speaking up in front of other people, it was really scary. And I remember this one time the teacher called on me to answer a question and I got it wrong in front of the whole class. And I started to cry, like I started to get tears in my eyes. And I remember the teacher said, like, Jen, well, call me Jenny, because I was a little kid. I said,
Yeah.
Jenny, don't, like, don't you dare cry in class. And it made me feel so ashamed, first of all, for getting it wrong, and then for being
Yeah.
emotional in front of the classroom. I can talk about it now, but way back then, I think that those experiences that we have when we're little can make a lasting impact. And I
Yes.
think it did impact the way that I would speak up in class, in groups. And I could see that like as I've gotten older and when I was really young in my career, never really spoke up in a meeting because I was afraid to get it wrong in front of other people.
Mm. Yeah, those experiences do carry on because I have a couple in my brain that's
Mhm.
still there. Yeah, and unfortunately, yeah, it does affect how we move as adults. It's like a trauma that's still there. Hmm. Wow, interesting. Yeah, and stuff like that has made me stick up for others. Even when I was, younger, if I would see somebody either being picked on or maybe not being picked on, but just someone made a comment about them because they were quieter or to themselves, that's when I don't know what to call it, but kind of like mama bear or protective comes out because I understand, what their personality and kind of what they may be going through. And it's like I want to protect them. Maybe I guess protect them in the way that I wasn't protected as a kid. Yeah.
Totally, totally. I love that.
Hmm. Yeah. So you are an introvert, but you are a leader, and you have your own business, and you are kind of coaching other leaders. Like, what inspired you to start your own business, first of all, and start your podcast?
Oh, yes. So I think about so many of the women I've talked to who are online or in entrepreneurship at one point had a feeling that they were meant for more. They were, there's this desire, you're going about your day to day, maybe you have a job or something in your professional life and you're working away, maybe you've been at your company for a long time and you think, there's got to be more for me. And I don't know what that is. And it's just sort of this nagging feeling of wanting to do something and maybe being unsure what it is. And I had that feeling for a long time. And I've worked in communications, in the communications industry for more than 20 years. I've worked
Mm,
in like numerous roles and had different teams and all kinds of things. And that feeling of this is good, but there's got to be something else. And
mm,
that's what inspired me to start my business. And some of it came from like why I'm particularly interested in helping women be leaders and the quieter ones is because that is an experience I had myself. When I was about
mm.
29, I was promoted into a leadership job overnight. I was called into my
Wow.
boss's office one afternoon. I think it was like 3 o'clock. And he said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but we have to do some budget cuts and there's going to be a restructuring of the team. And, this is what's happening. These people are being let go and you're going to take over the team tomorrow. And then I said, say what now? Like, right. I was so young and I was just one of the team. I was like the quiet one who kind of did her
Yeah.
work. I was sociable and I got along with everyone. And I mean, I thought clearly he made a mistake. He wasn't the
Mhm.
pick the right person to lead the team because there are others who are far more take charge and outgoing than me. And through that experience, I've made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, and the mistakes were trying to be someone I was not, trying to be a leader in air quotes, if you're listening to this, of thinking I needed to have all the answers, thinking I had to take charge of everyone, thinking I needed to tell people what to do. And really, I wanted to just hide in my office. Like, please don't bother me. I don't know how to
Yeah.
do this job. But I had this aha moment some months into doing this where I thought, wait a second, I'm trying to lead like all the role models I see around me, like
Mm.
people who are different than me. I'm trying to lead like a man, or I'm trying to lead like, and not all men, but like men I had seen in my own company, trying to lead like
Yeah.
other women I'd seen in my own company who were really outgoing and assertive and bordering on aggressive. And I thought, wait a second, who says I have to do it that way? And I had this epiphany and I started to lean into my strengths, exactly what you were saying. You're a good
Mm.
listener. You can sense how people are feeling. You maybe have a slower pace, that you're not rush all the time, and that you can take time to work through things. And I started to lean into that. I started to be more personal, to admit I didn't know everything, to ask for help, to get to know everyone on my team really well, figure out what they were passionate about and what they were really skilled at, and learned how to lead a team that way. So I learned how to lead quietly. And so that was 3 teams ago. And since then, I've built numerous high performing teams using this quieter approach that feels very good and it feels very natural. And so that is what inspired me to start a business. Whether I'm teaching women how to lead teams, I haven't fully developed that right now, like as part of my business, but I might someday. And I also want to inspire entrepreneurs that they can run a business in a quiet way too. So that's sort of the story of where it came from.
Wow, that's amazing. So, when you got the job overnight, did your manager like say why they chose you?
You know, I don't really remember, but it made me think he must have seen something in me that I
Yeah.
had the potential to do it. And maybe
Mm,
it was because I got along well with everyone. Maybe it was because he knew I had room to grow, or
mhm.
I'm not sure why, but I like to think those things, that he saw some potential and that I
Yeah.
maybe didn't see myself. It's like I said, you just count yourself out of leadership positions because you think, well, it's not really for me.
Right, right. Yeah, well, it's wonderful that you got that opportunity, because yeah, you probably wouldn't have gone on that path. I think about that similar with me, because when I was 17 in high school, through my school, I got placed at a job for um, a bank in their HR department.
Mm.
And so since I was in HR, that's just where I stayed. And so I'm like thankful that I got that job because I would have never chosen a job where I'm required to talk to people and build relationships every single day, but it helps me to learn skills that I need. And it helped, push me out of my comfort zone as well. And then also grow as a leader because being in HR, you kind of, no matter what your role is, you still kind of have to present yourself as a leader to the rest of the company. So yeah, that's really awesome that you got that opportunity and that you excelled at it.
It's one of those things where in the moment it felt awful, and
Yeah.
then you grow through the hard times and learn, and now I'm forever grateful for it because I probably wouldn't have started this business if it wasn't for that
Mhm.
experience so many years ago.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so you've been in business for 2 years, I believe you said, right now. So what's a challenge that you've had to face with your business?
Oh, yes. Well, which one? But yes. I think one of the biggest challenges that I've encountered, and that when I talk to others, sort of like around me in the community, fellow entrepreneurs who are trying to make it in
Mm,
business, we share it. It is knowing that you want to do something, like you want to make this business that makes an impact, and you have all of these ideas in your head and you can see it. Maybe you have a lot of plans, but the challenge is getting it out there
mm,
and putting yourself out there and marketing yourself, promoting your business, and having the energy as an introvert to show up every day for your business, or to show up in a really like public kind of way, has been a
mm,
huge challenge and a huge roller coaster learning curve, I would say. And one of
sure.
the things I've really um, I've really kind of come to realize just recently in the last few months, and it aligns so perfectly with building her dream and everything you're doing, is that, like in a corporate setting, I thought there was one way to lead.
Yeah.
In the entrepreneur space, especially online, I thought there was one way to do business. I thought it
Mhm.
was making reels, dancing around on camera. Oh my God, no thanks. Showing up on my stories every single day, talking about everything I'm doing and everything I'm eating and everywhere I'm going, and being this big bubbly personality online. Like, whether it sounds so silly or not, we kind of unintentionally fall into thinking that's how you get success in business.
Yep.
And while I don't know all the answers for like how to actually do it, I know there must be a better way for me. There must be a better way for those of us who that just doesn't feel like us. And if we try and like fake it, then our prospective clients are going to feel it, and then it's not going to work anyway. So that's been the
Mm.
biggest challenge. I'm sure you can relate.
Absolutely. I'm still trying to figure out the best ways that work for me. It's a lot of, trial and error, seeing what works and doesn't. But yeah, all of the tips out there is geared towards extroverts. And that's the struggle. So that's what we see is like, hey, if we want to become millionaires. We need to do what all these other millionaires are doing. And it's not, we definitely don't need to. Like, we can figure out what works best for us. Now, it may be a slower journey for us, but that's okay because once we do get there to whatever our desired success level is, like the feeling will be just so much better. Um, and so yeah, it's a learning process. It's a journey for sure.
It really is. And I don't know how many times maybe you've heard this from business advice, especially as when you're a solo entrepreneur and you're kind of like dipping your toe in this out water and you're like, okay, teach me, like, and you're
Right.
watching other people how it's done. I don't know how many times I heard, well, you just have to put yourself out there. You just have to get out
Mhm.
there. And you think, okay, what is out there and how exactly am I supposed to do that? And
Yeah.
then what you say about it being a slower journey, absolutely. And I've come to accept that I'm okay with that
Mhm.
because if I try and go at the pace that isn't right for me, I'm going to quit. I'm going to burn
Yeah.
out. I'm not going to have the passion or the desire to do this anymore. And so it's finding ways that you feel energized in what you're doing so that you can show up over time and like play the long game. I'm actually like finding that through podcasting. I
Mhm.
love podcasting and I love that you have a
Mm.
podcast. This feels very natural to me. It's a natural way to communicate. It's easy to talk about ideas. I would rather do this all day than post on Instagram. And so I don't know if this is going to work or not, in terms of finding the clients and making the money, but I'd rather do what I enjoy and I'd rather like see where this goes and take a little longer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We should be building businesses that we enjoy. Otherwise we can just stay working for someone else and have to follow their rules and do all of the extroverted things that we may not want to do. But for my
Exactly.
business, I'm going to do all the things that I want to do and that I enjoy. And I'm so surprised that I also love doing this podcast as well. Because when I started it last year, I just wanted to try it out and to, get some practice public speaking, but I didn't think that I was actually going to like it.
Yes.
Um, and I do, and I'm having a great time. And like you, I would love to do this all the time.
e-
Um, so
Exactly. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And I think I had the same experience where I started the podcast a little bit out of like, oh, I should do this, just to
mhm,
give it a go. And then didn't realize how much I would love it and how it actually can build relationships with your audience because they actually
mhm.
get to hear you. I would rather show up on here, have a meaningful conversation with someone than hold my phone in front of my face and try and think of something to say on my stories. What that just feels
Right.
random and doesn't really connect with anyone. So I think that's the real difference. So I'm so glad that is working for you too.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have this video, so we can create reels and stories with our podcast. So,
Exactly. It's working smarter, it's leaning into your natural strengths and then
mhm.
like doing that first keeps you in energy, keeps you in good energy. If you like
Yeah,
sit down to make a video, you're like all the stress and all the pressure comes with that, and then the product isn't as good.
right. Exactly. Exactly. Very cool. Um, what Speaking of energy, like what strategies or what things do you do to recharge and maintain your energy levels?
Mm. I love journaling. It's kind of like the introvert cliche thing to say, but I really love
Yeah.
journaling. I try and journal every morning and
Mm,
it never feels like I have to. I think because I'm in communications as well, I'm sort of a natural writer. Like writing is how
mm,
I process things and how I think. And so I do that. And even in the evening, if I've had a really long day and I need to just brain dump a little bit to like sometimes to recharge, I need to let go of things and get them out of your head
Yeah.
because you can carry around so much of the energy of the day and other people's energy. I don't know about you, but I take on other people's emotions and
Yep.
you kind of like cloud your own feelings and your own brain just full of all this stimulus from the outside world. So brain dumping to get it out is one way that's really important for me. And I
Hmm.
like to read a good book. I really like police novels and mysteries and solving crimes and just something that's so different and out of like the day to
Yeah.
day. Um, and being outside in nature is a big thing for me. Just going for a walk or getting some fresh air and relaxing and sort of like the introvert's dream is having alone time or time doing your own thing, but doing it next to and near the people you love. So like hanging with your family, but we don't have to be doing anything and just sort of like
Right.
cozy is a great way to unwind and for me to get energy.
I love that. Yeah, I do like being with my family or my friends. Now, I might not want you talking to me, so just sit over there, watch TV or something, and be quiet. But yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
Let's be quiet together. I'm good.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Or, sometimes I'll go out to dinner with someone and, some people think it's awkward if you're sitting with someone at dinner not saying anything, but why do we have to talk? We're eating, having good food. There's, good scenery. Like, I'm okay with the quiet.
Me too. And having to fill that space with like kind of
Mhm.
sweet talk could be really it takes away from the enjoyment of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Um, Now, if someone's listening and they want to become a better leader, they want to improve their leadership skills, like what would you recommend they do?
Hmm. Okay, that's a great question. I think when it comes to leadership, there are certain like necessary abilities or skills of doing the job of leadership. So that's
Mm.
sort of one area, and I could talk about that in a second. But it always starts with you, and it always starts with who you are and knowing who you are, knowing your values and what you stand for and what you don't. Some of those things are really important and overlooked in leadership. And being comfortable seeing yourself as a leader. So it almost starts with you want to become a better leader, you need to first see yourself as a leader. Even if you literally don't feel like it right now, you think I'm the furthest thing from a leader, you might be comparing yourself to some definition, like some gold standard of what you think leadership is. And the reason I say it's so important to start seeing yourself as a leader first is because if you don't, it's like it cuts out the foundation underneath you. You can learn all the like decision making skills or public speaking skills, but if you inside don't feel like you're worthy of it or that you
Mm.
belong in that leadership chair, then it will always be hard. It will always be a little bit harder. So some of the ways to start, like tangible things, I would suggest is like spending some time getting to know your own values and your
Yeah.
own work style. I assume you probably have some of that experience from your HR time that there's all kinds of different work styles. Some people like fast, some people like energy, some people like details and they want accuracy. And there's all kinds of ways that you can measure that. And, we could talk about that. But if you know your own style, like your own tendencies, both strengths and weaknesses, and your own values, like what is really important for you for how you behave, that will inform how you behave as a leader. So if you're all about taking risk and being adventurous, then that's going to come through in the type of leader you are. If you're more about safety and security, that's going to come through. So it's good to know yourself and then knowing that good leaders are adaptable and can bend and change and sort of like um, morph a little bit for the situation, but they never lose who they are at the core. So one perfect example of that is in a crisis situation, say if you're the leader of a team, like in a formal position, it's not the time for democracy. It's not the time to ponder and think about things, and give everyone lots of time to process or something. It's time for decisions, time for fast action. So that's an example of how you need to adapt. And you need to say, okay, for right now, I just need to make some decisions. It's a crisis. 1, 2, 3, what are we going to do? We'll get information and we'll learn as we go. It doesn't mean that that's how you are all the time, but you have the ability to adapt. So yeah, start with seeing yourself, start with knowing who you are, take a look at your values. The best thing is like there's value exercises you can do. Just Google what are some values, and there's like a list of 100 of them. Circle the ones that are meaningful and see if you can come up with your top 5.
Mhm. Very cool. Very great advice. Yeah. I've got so many more questions, but we
Great.
will be here all day. Before we go, is there anything else that you wanted to share? Um, I'll give you that opportunity. Otherwise, you can let us know where we can find you and, reach out to you.
Sure. And thank you again for the opportunity. My favorite place to hang out is my podcast. So, the Lead Quietly podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. I try to put out new episodes every week. And right now, what's a little interesting fact just about that is that I only do solo episodes right now. And that's by choice because of my introvert energy. I know I don't have the energy to book interviews, record interviews, edit interviews, and all of the things right now. And if I was going to have guests, I really want to do them justice. And so it's a conscious choice to just do solo episodes. So I just threw that out there. It's like that's one way that I'm trying to do business quieter and in my own way. But the Lead Quietly podcast is my favorite place. I do have a Facebook group. It's a private group called the Quiet Leader Community. You can find me there. It's a small group meant for entrepreneurs, for people in corporate jobs, for stay-at-home moms, whoever. If you identify as quiet or introverted and you have big goals, that's why I created this group. We just have fun conversations about going after our goals together. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at Lead Quietly.
Love it. Love that. So we'll definitely check out your podcast, your group, and find you on social media. Jen, it has been just really wonderful chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And thank you to our audience for listening. This has been another episode of the Building Her Dream podcast. If you've enjoyed it, why don't you go ahead and subscribe, leave us a review, and stay up to date with what we're doing by visiting www.buildingherdream.com.